Stand up and apologize. You stupid woman now. The glass fell from my hand and shattered across the tiled floor of Kemi's dining room, sparkling like a broken promise. Laughter died. Music paused. 4 men and 3 women stared at me as if I'd grown 2 heads. My husband, Tund, shoved his chair back so hard it screeched. Then, in full view of his friends, he kicked my shin under the table. Sharp, deliberate, a message wrapped in polished loafers. What would you do if your husband said this to you in front of everyone? Hit like if you've ever tasted betrayal, and comment below where you're watching from. Tund! Kemi gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. She wore gelly and a fitted Ankara dress, hostess with pride and scandal at once. Her husband, Laulu, reached for Tund's shoulder. Guy, relax. Relax? She embarrassed me. Tund spat, eyes hot, jaw flexing. I steadied myself, leg throbbing, a flush creeping up my neck. In Lagos, dignity is currency. Tonight, mine was being spent like pocket change. The scent of jollof rice and grilled tilapia hung thick in the air, mixed with mint from a fan diffuser and shame I refused to swallow. What did I do? I asked, voice steady, though my hands trembled as I gathered the fallen cutlery. Tell them, Tund. Tell them what I did. He pointed at the sideboard where Kemi's Bluetooth speaker sat between family photos and souvenir Kent napkin rings. She snooped through my phone. In my presence. During grace. The table bristled. Someone muttered, "Ah." Another voice, "That's deep." I felt the weight of their stares like hot beads. I didn't bother correcting him. I hadn't snooped. I picked up his phone because it buzzed. I'd seen the name Ruth, new apartment light across the screen in bold. I had put it down, but not fast enough. Tund, I said again, quieter. You're lying. He leaned forward, eyes narrowing. You think because you earn now you can disgrace me? You think you're a man? Answer me when I speak. Electricity sliced through the room. Lagos nights can be unkind. Too much heat, too many secrets. Outside, along the street in Ikeja GRA, the hum of generators underscored the hush inside our little theater. Kemi's domestic staff kept peeking from the kitchen doorway, aprons twisted like knots. Apologize, Tund hissed, or get out. I let the silence stretch until even the ceiling fan seemed to hold its breath. My shin pulsed where he'd kicked me. I drew in air and tasted pepper, charcoal, and something metallic behind my teeth. No, I said. The word dropped like a stone in a shallow well. He laughed, a short, cruel sound. You see? This is what I've been saying. She's stubborn, masculine. She undermines me. My friends, am I wrong? Tell her. Laulu and the other men traded looks. The careful one's men wear when loyalty and conscience fight. Titi, soft-voiced and elegant, spoke first. Tund, please, we're guests. Let's not. But we should. I cut in, surprising myself. We should talk. In fact, we should tell the truth tonight. Tund's eyes flashed. Don't start. Start. I laughed, my own sound brittle. We started when you came home at 3 a.m. smelling of jasmine and champagne. We started when you called me bro for refusing your friend's lap dance at his bachelor party. We started when you stopped touching me but started buying new cologne. A low ripple went around the table. Kemi's nails clicked nervously against her wine glass. Afrobeats thumped faintly from a neighbor's party, like someone else's heart beating next door. Tund's lips thinned. You see her? Paranoid. A crazed wife. Wife, I echoed. The word felt heavy, like something soaked. Funny. I looked at the faces I knew. We'd shared birthdays and bridal showers, asoebi and baby dedications. We danced to Burna Boy and Ira Star, eaten Puff Puff and Suya, poured out Fanta for the kids. These were the people Tund trusted to see me humiliated because humiliation feeds a certain appetite. Control. He lifted his chin, proud. You don't respect me. I looked at him, truly looked. Tall, handsome, careful beard. Expensive Agbada tonight. Midnight blue with silver embroidery that caught the light. The man I married at Holy Cross Cathedral 3 years ago had vowed to protect, to honor, to build together. That man was a ghost with my husband's face. "You're right," I said, and the room inhaled as one. "I don't respect liars." His chair clattered as he stood, daring me. "Say that again." "Liars," I said louder. "Cheaters. Men who buy flats for Ruth in Lekki like it's a raffle prize. Men who ask their wives for church money, then tip strippers with dollars. Men who kick their wives under tables because they love an audience as much as they love a mirror." "Shut up," he shouted, and the decanter shook. I didn't blink. I'd seen worse, far worse. In interrogation rooms that smelled of sweat and stale dreams, men shout the same way when the evidence starts to sing. My badge sits in a black wallet I never carry to dinners. My service pistol sleeps most nights in a lockbox. Tund never noticed the routine because he never really looked at me, only at what I reflected of him. I doubt he could imagine who I am at work, the cases I've cracked, the women I've quietly helped. He thinks I'm administration. He thinks my late nights are with spreadsheets, not suspects. Let him. "Sit," I said softly. "Before you fall." He stared, thrown by the calm. "Or what?" he sneered. I smiled with no humor. "Or you give me another reason to leave." Something ugly flickered across his face. Fear, perhaps, or calculation. He forced a laugh, turning to his friends again. "Look at her. Always threatening. Always dramatic. She's the reason we can't have peace. You see why a man needs companionship." There it was, the thing he wanted. A staged confession wrapped in victimhood. He waited for their nods. Laulu coughed. "Tund, Baiko. This is too much." "Too much?" Tund asked, spreading his hands. "Is truth too much? She won't give me a son. She won't give me respect. What is a man to do?" Heat burned behind my eyes, sudden and white. The child we lost last year at 11 weeks felt again like a secret funeral. He knew what he was doing, twisting the knife with words, since his foot had done its work already. I swallowed. "Say her name," I said, surprised how even I sounded. "Say the name that texted you your boys are gone. Come now. Say it so the stew can hear and curdle." Kemi's mouth fell open. "You saw the text?" Tun's jaw clenched. "You see? She snoops." "I saw a notification," I said. "Because when you place your phone face up next to me while you criticize my manners, the hypocrisy tends to glow." Nervous laughter. Titi looked from me to Tund, eyes sad. "This isn't right. Nothing about this marriage is right," Tund said, and the cruelty in his ease broke something in me that had bent too long. "I should have married a woman who listens." "Like Ruth?" I asked, and because I am a woman who listens too, I heard the sharp intake of breath from the seat beside him. Obi, his newest friend from the gym, who avoids my eyes at church. "Tund," Obi said carefully. "Maybe we should." "Shut up," Tund snapped. "Stay out of my home." "This is Kemi's home," I said, "and I'm not staying." I stood, pushing my chair in with deliberate neatness. Sweat prickled my spine, but my voice belonged to me. "There are witnesses now." "Good. I'll leave with one suitcase and my dignity. You can keep your lies and your showmanship." Something in him panicked at the idea of losing the stage. He grabbed my wrist. Not hard, but possessive. Just enough for the pearl bracelet my mother gave me to bite into skin. "You'll go nowhere," he said low. "You have no money without me." I laughed. "You truly don't know me." His fingers tightened. "Don't test me." "My friend," Laulu said, standing. "Release her hand." Tund looked around and saw the room shifting, the current moving against him like the eco-bridge traffic at rush hour. He let go with a smirk to pretend choice. "Go," he said in English, mocking. Carry your feminist walla away from my table. I took my clutch. Inside it, lip gloss, house keys, a small notebook, and a memory card I'd copied last week, labeling it only in my head. Festival Road, November. He'd left his laptop open when he ran to take a call. Another accident. Men like Tund believe the world is a mirror. They don't suspect shadows have eyes. You want me gone? I said. So be it. I walked to the foyer, heels thudding on the polished floor that smelled faintly of Dettol and lemon oil. The hallway was lined with framed photos. Kemi and Laulu on a beach in Ghana. All of us at Kemi's 40th. Tund lifting me at our wedding reception as if weight was a cute joke. My shin ached. My pride stood up straight. You jied. TT called after me gently. Wait, don't drive. Let me call comrade. I'm fine, I said, not trusting my voice to hold long sentences. I reached the door. Leave the keys, Tund said behind me. The car is mine. I paused, hand on the handle, then slid the keys back into my clutch. I'll manage. He laughed again. Without me? With that little salary? I turned slowly. Yes. He really laughed now, big and broad. You see her? Delusion. Women in this Lagos, Instagram queens in the mind. You'll crawl back. Maybe, I said. Maybe I'll fly first. I opened the door. Night air rushed in, humid, alive, noisy with crickets and generators and the faint honk of distant danfos. The scent of rain sat heavy even though the sky was holding back. I stepped into it and felt the city hold me like a long-lost sister. You jied? Kemi whispered at my shoulder as she caught up. Come to the guest room. Sleep. Tomorrow we talk. I touched her arm. Thank you. I need air. Please, don't do anything rash, she said, eyes searching mine. Rash? I repeated, almost smiling. No. Me? I'm careful. She didn't know how careful. She didn't know about the training, the instincts, the patient kind of revenge that looks like justice to those who love light. She didn't know the way evidence is a tide that seems gentle until it sweeps a man he thought was stone. Let me walk you out, she said. We reached the gate. A young gateman in a neat uniform glanced up. Eyes big with drama, he'd tell his friends later. Madam, make I call driver? I'll call one, I said. Thank you. The night guard nodded respectfully. In Lagos, kindness is an economy too. You jied? Kemi pressed, voice low as diesel hum filled the pause. Is it true? About Ruth? I studied my friend. Makeup perfect, gelly flawless, heart fragile. In another life, we would be gossiping about Ankara styles and school fees. In this one, my marriage was unraveling in her dining room. I'll find out, I said. How? I met her eyes. I always find out. My phone buzzed in my palm. An unknown number. Instinct tingled the way it does when a hand hovers near a concealed weapon. I swiped. A woman's voice, breathless. Is this Yajid? Please, I didn't know he was married. He said you two were separated. Please don't hang up. I didn't speak. Let the silence draw. I'm Ruth, she said, soft as a bandage. The name hung between us like a lamp. Kemi's eyebrows shot up. Ruth started to cry. He promised me. He said he'd introduce me tonight as his fiancée at his friend's dinner. He said you'd already moved out. He said many things. My hand tightened around the phone. The streetlight flickered. It does that here, like the city knows when drama needs a spotlight. Beyond the wall, a distant generator coughed, then smoothed out. I kept my tone gentle. Where are you, Ruth? Please, she sniffled. Don't be angry. I didn't know. I swear. We met at the gym in Lekki. He helped me with a real estate deal. Her voice broke. He's been hitting me. My stomach lurched, heat flashing across my face. Beside me, Kemi covered her mouth. He told me I was lucky, Ruth whispered, because he's a good man and I'm damaged goods. He said if I told anyone, he'd ruin me. I closed my eyes. Domestic betrayal. Public disgrace. Emotional manipulation. He was exporting our homegrown poison. And he had threatened her with the same confidence he wore tonight like cologne. Where are you? I repeated. Festival Road, Phase 1, she said. He gave me the keys last week. I don't know what to do. I looked back at the house where laughter had turned into something else. Through the open door I could see Tund raising a fresh drink, performing for a shrinking audience because performers panic when a stage loses light. Text me the exact address, I said. Don't leave. Lock your door. Oh, okay. And Ruth? Yes. Don't blame yourself. He's an expert. She sniffled again. Who are you to him? I stared at the house. His wife, I said. For now. I hung up. Kemi's eyes were wet. What will you do? Go home, I said. Pack a bag. I hesitated. Then I'll go see her. At night, Kemi whispered. It's late. Abusers don't keep office hours, I said. Kemi squeezed my hand. Be careful. I smiled, the first genuine stretch of my mouth all evening. I'm always careful. Comrade driver pinged. For minutes, I told Kemi. I'll be fine. She hugged me fiercely, perfume and warmth. The anchor a drowning woman refuses but needs. Then she went back inside to ice a party no one would forget. I stepped toward the edge of the driveway where bougainvillea spilled like gossip over the wall. The petals bright even in low light. My phone vibrated again, this time with a text. Pin location. Festival Road, November, it might as well have said. My mind arranged details like files in a cabinet, times, faces, lies. In the distance, thunder rumbled, low as a warning drum. I looked up at the wide Lagos sky and made a promise to myself in plain language. I will not break him with fists. I will not scream. I will do what I do best. Collect truth like beads and string them where the whole market can see. Headlights swept the gate as the driver turned in. Tund's laughter rose behind me, forced high. Let him laugh. The city keeps receipts. I slid into the back seat and told the driver my estate. As we pulled away, I watched Kemi's house shrink in the mirror, a bright rectangle in the night. My phone buzzed again. Another message, this one from an unknown international number with a short video attachment. Against my better judgment, I tapped. Tund's face filled the screen, smiling into a camera, arms slung around a woman whose voice I had just heard. They looked drunk on something meaner than alcohol. He kissed her cheek and whispered, clear as day, "Don't worry, my detective wife is clueless." My heart stuttered, then steadied into something iron. Detective wife. He thought it was a joke he made to impress his little audience. The way his eyes glinted told me he didn't know. He couldn't possibly know. Madam, AC okay? The driver asked. Yes, I said, and saved the video to a folder I call Sunlight. Perfect. Outside, Lagos moved, hawkers closing shop, couples strolling by shawarma spots, police checkpoints lighting up like small stages. The calm before a storm tastes like adrenaline if you know your own courage. When we turned onto Airport Road toward my estate, thunder cracked louder, sudden sheets of rain beginning to fall. Cleansing or complicating, I couldn't tell. My phone rang again. I expected Ruth. Instead, it was my mother-in-law, Mama Tund. I almost let it go to voicemail, then picked up. "You jied?" Her voice came, iron wrapped in lace. "What is this nonsense I'm hearing that you insulted my son in public?" I closed my eyes, rain hissing against the car roof like 1,000 whispered prayers. "Good evening, Ma." "Don't good evening me," she snapped. "A woman's pride is in her home. You think you can scatter it? Tomorrow morning you will come and kneel down and beg him. Do you hear me?" I opened my eyes. The driver flicked the wipers faster. Neon smeared across wet glass like melting secrets. My choices arrayed themselves like a chessboard I suddenly saw from above. "Ma!" I said carefully. Tomorrow morning your son might need a lawyer. A beat of silence. What are you saying? Good night, Ma. I ended the call. The driver glanced at me in the mirror, reading my face like breaking news. Madam. Left at the next light, I said softly. Then straight. We entered my estate. The gate swung open. Familiar security men waving, their torchlights bouncing in rhythm with the rain. I gave the driver extra cash, stepped out under the eaves, and listened to the heavy drops thrum a rhythm on the carport. Inside, I packed like a patient soldier. 2 changes of clothes, toiletries, my mother's photograph, the small leather wallet that holds my badge, just in case, and the old necklace my grandmother said protects a woman's good name. On my dresser, my wedding band lay where I'd left it 2 weeks ago after our biggest fight. I slid it into a drawer without looking too long. A ring is a loop. Sometimes it's also a noose. I zipped my bag, took one last look at the neat room I'd painted the color of sunrise, and headed for the door. The rain had softened to a steady whisper. Outside, the air smelled new. My phone vibrated one more time with a final message. A screenshot from an unknown number. It was a bank alert, Tons account. N 3.2 million transferred to Ruth A. Memo, rent. Keep quiet. I felt the fury rise and settle again like a tide turns. Evidence. Always evidence. I stepped into the night and locked my door behind me. The path lights flickered on, guiding my steps like a runway. My comrade waited, engine soft. As I reached for the car handle, my phone rang, hidden caller ID. I answered, expecting the same chorus. Instead, a man's voice I hadn't heard in months said, friendly as an old neighbor. Detective Yajide, sorry to call late. It's Inspector Danjuma. We've been trying to reach you about a case. The suspect's name is Tund A. Rain seemed to pause midair. Repeat that, I said, my fingers tightening on cold metal. Yes, he said, papers shuffling on his end. Tund alias Coach. We've linked him to a small ring, fraud, coercion. Victims afraid to testify. We found your number on a tip. Can we meet tonight? I looked at my packed bag, the waiting car, the pin to Festival Road blinking on my screen like a heartbeat. Send me everything, I said, voice low. And Inspector? Yes, Detective? Don't move on him until I call. I ended the call and slid into the back seat as lightning stitched the sky and Lagos held its breath for dawn. My driver pulled away from the curb. We turned toward the island and the woman who waited, afraid, in a flat my husband had bought with money he never meant to spend on truth. The storm followed us like a drummer to a battle no one would see coming. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more gripping stories like this. What do you think happens next? Comment below. The next morning was slow, lethargic, like the earth had decided it needed more rest. As I sat in my living room with a cup of hot tea, the world outside was still wet from last night's rain. The sounds of traffic mixed with the clinking of metal and chatter in the distance. The hum of Lagos life. Constantly moving, always busy. But inside me, everything was still. I kept seeing the image of Tun's face, his contemptuous smirk as he kicked me in front of his friends. The humiliation still burned beneath my skin like a fresh wound. His words echoed in my mind, sharper than the sting in my shin from his violent kick. She snooped through my phone, in my presence, during grace. His voice was thick with anger, but beneath it, there was something else. Fear. Fear of being caught. Fear that the facade he'd worked so hard to build would crumble, and I would be the one to tear it down. I had walked out of that dinner, but walking away wasn't enough to erase the feeling of betrayal. That night, I went home and packed a small bag, just enough to last me a few days. No one had asked for my side of the story, not even Kemi. She had tried to comfort me, but how could she? She had her own interests tied up in Tund, and I'd been foolish to believe that she would be on my side. I thought about Ruth, the woman who had called me last night. She had no idea that she was just another pawn in a game Tund had been playing for years. Tund, the man I married, the man I loved, had managed to weave a web of lies so intricate that I could no longer tell where he ended and where his lies began. Ruth had no idea what she was getting into, but I would make sure she understood the man she was dealing with. As I sipped my tea, my mind kept wandering back to the conversation I'd overheard in Kemi's house. The laughter, the mocking tone in Tund's voice, the way he belittled me in front of everyone. It was a reminder that I had been nothing more than a trophy wife to him, a possession to show off to his friends. And when I stopped playing the role he expected of me, he became angry. Angry because he was no longer in control. I put the tea down and stood up, walking to the window that overlooked the busy street. It was a good vantage point for someone who needed to think. The sun was still hidden behind clouds, and the city felt muffled, as though it was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. The night before, I had promised myself I wouldn't allow Tund's actions to define me. I wouldn't give him the satisfaction of seeing me crumble under the weight of his betrayal. But the truth was, I wasn't sure what to do. I had a career, I had my dignity, but all of that seemed so small in comparison to the damage he had done to our marriage. I needed answers. I needed to know why he had treated me like this. And most importantly, I needed to protect myself, not just emotionally, but financially and legally. I picked up my phone and called my friend, Olamide. She was one of the few people I trusted completely. Olamide had known Tund and me from the beginning, when we were still the happy couple everyone admired. She knew the good and the bad, and I needed her advice now more than ever. "You jied," she answered on the first ring, her voice a soft comfort. "What happened last night? I heard some things from Kemi. Are you okay?" I didn't know how to answer. "I'm not sure, Olamide. I don't know what's real anymore." There was a pause and then she sighed. "You've been through a lot, I know. But you're strong, Yajide. You've always been strong." "Not strong enough to see this coming," I whispered, more to myself than to her. "I found out last night that Tund has been lying to me, cheating on me, and the worst part? He's not even hiding it anymore. He thinks he can get away with it because I'm the dutiful wife who won't speak up." "Wait," she interrupted, her tone sharp with concern. "Are you telling me Tund has been seeing someone else?" I nodded, even though I knew she couldn't see me. "Yes, her name is Ruth. I found a message from her on his phone last night, and when I confronted him, he didn't even try to deny it. He just made me look like the crazy one." Olamide was silent for a moment, processing what I had said. Then, with a voice full of conviction, she said, "You're not crazy. He is. And you deserve better than this, Yajide. You need to take action." I let out a breath, the weight of the situation pressing down on me. "But what can I do, Olamide? How do I fight this?" "You fight with what you know," she replied firmly. "You're a police detective. You know how to get to the truth. You've been trained to see through people's lies. Use that. Don't let him get away with this." Her words hit me like a lightning bolt. She was right. I was a police detective trained to investigate, to uncover the truth. I had the tools I needed, but I had never imagined I'd be using them to investigate my own husband. "I'll do it," I said, the decision firm in my voice. "I'll find out everything. I'll expose him for who he really is." Olamide's voice softened. "Just be careful. He's not just your husband anymore. He's your case, Yajide. And cases don't always play fair." "I know," I whispered, "but I'm not backing down." After hanging up with Olamide, I sat back down on the couch, my mind racing. What was I supposed to do next? I had to gather evidence, but how? I couldn't just waltz into his office or his phone like I had before. This time I needed to be smart, calculated. I pulled out my laptop and opened a new document. I had to make a plan. A real plan, not just an emotional reaction to a man who had torn my world apart. I had to think like a detective. I had to think like the professional I was trained to be. The first step was to gather information. I had already seen enough last night to know that something wasn't right. Tun's relationship with Ruth wasn't a one-time mistake. It was ongoing, and I needed proof. The second step was to confront him, but this time I had to do it on my terms. No more public humiliations. No more playing the victim. I would walk into that confrontation with the evidence I needed to take back control of my life. The third step was to protect myself. Not just emotionally, but legally. Tund had made threats, and I knew better than to underestimate the lengths he would go to keep his secrets safe. I needed to make sure that if it came to it, I had the upper hand in court. I spent the next few hours going over my options, organizing my thoughts and strategizing. Every move had to be calculated. Every word I spoke had to be measured. Tund had no idea what he was about to face. By the time the sun began to set, I had a plan in place. I was ready to move forward, ready to expose Tund for the liar he was. But as I prepared to take the next step, my phone buzzed again. I looked at the screen, and my heart skipped a beat. It was Ruth. She had sent me another message. "Please," it read, "I need to talk. There's something you need to know about Tund." I hesitated for a moment, then replied, "Where are you?" Her response came quickly. "Festival Road. I'm at the apartment he bought for me. Please, come now." My fingers hovered over the keyboard. What was she about to tell me? Was it the truth? Or was she just another pawn in Tund's game? I took a deep breath. I didn't have time to second-guess myself. I was already in this, and I wasn't going to back down now. "I'm on my way," I typed. "I'll be there in 30 minutes. I grabbed my bag, shoved my phone into my pocket, and headed for the door. This was it. The moment I had been waiting for. The truth was finally within reach. As I stepped out into the night, I could feel the weight of everything on my shoulders. But I didn't flinch. I didn't hesitate. I was going to find out everything. And once I did, Tund would have to face the consequences of his actions. The drive to Festival Road was longer than I expected. Lagos, at night, always has a way of showing you how small you are in a city so vast, so filled with noise and life. The streetlights flickered in and out, casting brief shadows on the side streets. I was used to the chaos. The sounds of taxis honking, street vendors shouting out their wares, the occasional siren of a passing police van. But tonight, it all felt like a distant hum, something I was only half aware of. I wasn't thinking about the sounds. I was thinking about Ruth. What was it that she wanted to tell me? Why had she reached out again after the initial shock of her confession? Was she just another victim of Tund's charm? Or was there more to this story? I glanced at the text she'd sent me earlier. "Please, there's something you need to know about Tund." Her plea had echoed in my mind the entire drive. Something about it nagged at me. What could she possibly have to add to the mountain of lies I was already carrying? I shook my head, trying to shake off the doubt. No more second-guessing. Tund had already shown me who he was. If Ruth had more to tell me, I needed to hear it. Maybe this was the final piece of the puzzle I needed to expose him once and for all. The car finally slowed as we approached the entrance to Festival Road. The buildings on this street were the kind you could only find in the more upscale parts of Lagos. Modern apartments with glass windows and security gates that had more cameras than the average government building. I didn't know the exact address, but I knew I would find it. The apartment had to be one of these sleek high-rises, the kind Tund could afford with his connections and the secrets he was hiding. I stepped out of the car and made my way to the entrance, scanning the area as I walked. The apartment complex was secure, but I wasn't worried. I'd been through worse. Been in places where danger lurked at every corner, and yet, I had come out on top. I was going to walk into this building, get what I needed, and leave with my dignity intact. As I approached the building's main door, I sent Ruth a quick message. "I'm here." "Which apartment?" She responded almost immediately. "Apartment 308. Third floor. I'll be waiting by the door." I nodded to myself, making my way to the elevator. My fingers trembled slightly as I pressed the button for the third floor, but I forced myself to steady my breath. I couldn't afford to be emotional. Not tonight. Not when I was so close to exposing the truth. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime, and I stepped into the quiet hallway. Ruth's apartment had to be just around the corner. I could feel the tension in the air, thick like a storm cloud. Every step felt heavy, every movement a reminder of the stakes. I was walking into unknown territory, and once I walked in, I couldn't turn back. When I reached apartment 308, I knocked once, sharp and loud. The sound reverberated down the hallway, and I heard the faint shuffle of footsteps from inside. The door cracked open slowly, revealing Ruth. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her face pale. She was wearing a loose, oversized shirt and sweatpants, like she'd been sitting around waiting for me, lost in her own thoughts. But there was something else. Something in the way she was holding herself, like she was nervous, unsure of what would happen next. "You died," she said softly, her voice trembling. I nodded, looking her over. She didn't seem like the woman Tund had described. No, she wasn't some vengeful mistress. She was just lost, just like I had been, just like I still was. "Come in," Ruth said, stepping aside to let me into the apartment. I entered cautiously, eyes scanning the room as I stepped inside. The apartment was nice, but it wasn't the kind of luxury I had expected from Tund. The furniture was modern but simple, the walls adorned with minimalist art. It was the kind of place you would expect a young professional to rent, neat, functional, but lacking the warmth that came with a home. "Sit," Ruth said, gesturing toward the couch. I didn't know who else to talk to. I sat down, my body tense, every muscle in my legs screaming for release. Ruth stood in front of me, wringing her hands. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice shaking. "I never meant for any of this to happen. I didn't know he was married. He told me you two were separated. He said that you didn't want to be with him anymore, that you were out of the picture." The words hit me like a slap in the face, but I didn't show it. I wasn't about to let my emotions control this conversation. Ruth was telling me her side, and I needed to listen. "You're not the first woman he's done this to," I said quietly, almost to myself. "He's done it before." Ruth's eyes widened in surprise. "What do you mean?" I thought I was the only one. I thought he loved me." "Love?" I scoffed, shaking my head. "Tund doesn't know how to love. Not the way you think. He's a man who's learned how to manipulate women into believing that he's everything they need. He's made a career out of it." She took a step closer, her eyes searching mine. "I don't know if I believe you, but I know he lied to me. He promised me things I never should have believed. He said he would introduce me to his friends as his fiancée tonight. He said you'd already moved out. He said I was the one he was going to build a future with." I closed my eyes for a moment, allowing the words to sink in. Ruth wasn't lying. Tund had played her just like he'd played me, and he was so good at it, so good at making us believe in a love that wasn't real. "I'm sorry," I said, looking up at her. "I didn't mean to accuse you, but I need you to understand something. Tund isn't the man he pretends to be. He's not just betraying me. He's betraying you too." Ruth's eyes filled with tears as she sat down beside me. "I just don't understand. He told me we had a future together. He told me he wanted to be with me. And now you're telling me that it was all a lie." I nodded. "Yes, it was a lie. Everything he's told you is a lie. He's been lying to both of us. And I need you to help me expose him. I need you to tell me everything. Every detail, every conversation, everything." Ruth hesitated, looking away for a moment as if weighing her options. She took a deep breath and then nodded. "Okay, I'll help you. But I need to know, what are you going to do with this information? Are you going to make him pay for what he's done?" My stomach tightened. I hadn't thought about that. I hadn't thought about how far I was willing to go to make sure Tund faced the consequences of his actions. I knew he deserved to pay, but how? What was I willing to sacrifice to get justice? I don't know, I said quietly, but I'll make sure he can't hurt anyone else. Ruth nodded. I can't stay with him anymore. I can't trust him. But I can't just walk away from all of this. I have to know the truth. I leaned forward, my voice steady. You will. We both will. Together. Ruth gave a small, shaky smile. Okay, let's do this. The next few hours were a blur. Ruth shared everything she could remember. Texts, phone calls, even photographs. She showed me the messages Tund had sent her, the lies he'd woven, the promises he'd broken. And the more I saw, the angrier I became. This wasn't just about betrayal. This was about control. Tund had used Ruth the same way he'd used me. He'd manipulated her, made her believe she was something special, when in reality, she was just another notch on his belt. By the time I left her apartment, I had everything I needed. The evidence was in my hands, and I was ready to take the next step. Tund had no idea what was coming for him. He had no idea that the women he thought he could control were about to turn the tables on him. As I walked back to the elevator, I felt a sense of resolve settle over me. This wasn't just about revenge. This was about justice, about making sure he never hurt anyone else again. But as I stepped into the elevator, my phone buzzed. It was Tund. I didn't even have to look at the screen to know what he wanted. He was trying to contact me, and this time I wasn't answering. The weight of Tund's betrayal hung heavily over me, like a storm cloud that refused to dissipate. I hadn't seen his face since the night of the dinner, and I wasn't sure if I was ready to. Every time I closed my eyes, I could still hear his voice, mocking, contemptuous. I could feel his foot on my shin, the shame and humiliation he had thrown at me in front of his friends. But more than that, I could still hear the lies he'd spun, the promises he had made to Ruth, to me, and to everyone who had ever trusted him. I sat in my living room, surrounded by the evidence I had gathered over the past few days. Ruth had come through, her memory clear, her willingness to help unwavering. She had sent me everything. Text messages, photos, screenshots, even voice notes of Tund confessing to things I never thought I'd hear from his mouth. The details were overwhelming. It was like he had been playing a game for years, and I had just woken up to the reality of his deceit. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the pile of evidence in front of me. The walls of my apartment felt like they were closing in on me, the suffocating silence pressing down on my chest. I had spent so much time trying to fix what was broken in my marriage, trying to make it work. And yet, here I was, sitting alone, gathering the pieces of my life after Tund had shattered everything. I picked up my phone and glanced at the missed calls from Tund. His name was flashing on the screen, his calls coming in one after the other. Desperate. I had refused to answer any of them. How could I? What could he possibly say that would make this all go away? What could he say to make me believe that his infidelity, his lies, his betrayal were somehow justified? I turned my phone off and set it down on the table. I didn't need to hear from him. I didn't need his excuses. What I needed was justice. What I needed was closure. And to get that, I had to confront him head-on with everything I had. I had already made up my mind. I wasn't going to let him walk away from this. Not this time. This time, I was going to be the one in control. This time, I was going to make sure that the truth came out no matter the cost. But as I prepared for the inevitable confrontation, I couldn't help but wonder, what would he do when he realized I knew everything? Would he try to manipulate me again, using his charm and sweet words to make me forgive him? Or would he lash out, desperate to protect the lie he had built? The truth was, I didn't know, but I wasn't going to wait around to find out. I was done being passive. I was done being the wife who stood by and watched as her husband destroyed everything. It was time to take action. I stood up and walked to the window, staring out at the bustling streets below. The city was alive, just like it always was. People rushing to and from their destinations, cars honking, vendors shouting their wares. The noise of Lagos was deafening, but in that moment, I welcomed it. It was the sound of life going on, the sound of people moving forward, despite everything. I wasn't going to let Tund drag me down anymore. I wasn't going to be a passive participant in my own life. I was going to take control, just like I had always done when faced with challenges in my career. I was a detective. I had faced criminals, uncovering secrets, piecing together truths no one else could see. This time, Tund was the criminal and I was the investigator. And I was going to make sure he paid for everything he had done. I reached for my phone again, hesitating for a moment. I had to make the call. I had to confront him. I dialed his number, and the phone rang twice before he picked up. "Yajide." Tund's voice came through the line, smooth, almost casual. "Why haven't you been answering my calls? We need to talk." His words were infuriating. How could he be so calm, so composed? Didn't he understand the gravity of what he had done? Didn't he realize that the game was over? I took a deep breath and forced myself to remain calm. "We have nothing to talk about," I said, my voice steady despite the rage bubbling beneath the surface. "I know everything, Tund. I know about Ruth. I know about the lies. I know about the money you've been hiding. I know everything." There was a long pause on the other end of the line, and I could almost hear his mind working, trying to figure out how to play this. But there was no playing anymore. I wasn't going to let him manipulate me. "Yajide," he finally said, his voice softer now, almost pleading. "Listen to me. It's not what you think. I made mistakes, yes, but it doesn't mean it's over. We can fix this, baby. We can work through it. I love you." I laughed bitterly, shaking my head. "Love? That's what you call it? Tund, you've been lying to me, cheating on me, using me like I'm nothing more than a convenience. And now you want to talk about love?" His tone shifted again, frustration creeping into his voice. "You don't understand. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Ruth doesn't mean anything to me. You're the one I want. You're the one I need. Please, Yajide, don't do this. Don't throw everything away." I could hear the desperation in his voice, and part of me, just a small part, wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that he was sorry, that he regretted his actions. But I couldn't afford to be weak. I couldn't let him pull me back into the web of lies he had created. Not this time. "I'm done, Tund," I said, my voice firm. "I'm done with you. I'm done with the lies, the manipulation, the betrayal. You've had your chance. And you blew it." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. I knew he was trying to find the right words, but I didn't want to hear them. I wasn't going to let him talk his way out of this. Not anymore. "Goodbye, Tund," I said, and hung up the phone. I sat there for a moment, the weight of the conversation hanging in the air. It felt like a finality, like I had just crossed a line I could never return from. But at the same time, there was a sense of relief. The decision had been made. There was no turning back now. I stood up and grabbed my purse, ready to leave. I needed to do something. I needed to take action. Tund wasn't going to get away with this. He wasn't going to destroy my life any longer. I walked to the door and opened it, stepping out into the hallway. As I made my way to the elevator, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change. The confrontation with Tund had been inevitable, but now, with the evidence in my hands, I was ready to take it to the next level. I wasn't just going to confront him, I was going to expose him, and nothing was going to stop me. As the elevator doors closed behind me, I felt the weight of the decision settle into my chest. This was it, the beginning of the end. The morning after my phone call with Tund was a blur. I had no appetite, no desire to do anything but stare at the walls of my apartment. The evidence I had gathered from Ruth and the incriminating messages had been enough to take action. But I still felt the weight of the situation pressing down on me. The tension, the uncertainty of what was to come. It was all so overwhelming. I hadn't heard from Tund since the call, and a small part of me wondered if he was planning his next move. I couldn't imagine him just giving up, not after everything he had done to control the narrative. This was far from over, and I knew that. He was a man who thrived on manipulation, on the power he held over people. But I had learned the hard way that once you see the truth, there's no going back. I couldn't stay in my apartment forever. I had to do something. I had to find a way to use the evidence I had and put it to work. The more I thought about it, the clearer the plan became. The law was my weapon, my shield, my last line of defense. It was time to make sure Tund understood that his lies wouldn't go unpunished. I grabbed my phone and called Olamide again. She picked up on the second ring, her voice still soft but now full of concern. "Yajide, how are you holding up?" "Not well," I admitted. "But I've got a plan. I need your help." Olamide was quiet for a moment before speaking again. "Anything. What do you need me to do?" "I need you to help me connect with the right people," I said, feeling the weight of the words. "I have evidence. I know what Tund's been doing, and I need to take action. But I need to make sure I do it the right way. I don't want to end up like one of those women who gets taken advantage of in the system. I want justice." "Justice?" Olamide echoed, and I could hear the determination in her voice. "I'm with you, Yajide. You deserve that." I sighed, feeling a small sense of relief. "I know I do, but I don't know where to start. I can't just walk into the police station and tell them everything without any concrete proof. I need to build my case. I need to make sure that when I expose him, it's airtight." "Do you still have everything Ruth gave you?" Olamide asked. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "Yes, everything. Texts, photos, voice notes." He practically handed me his confession on a silver platter. "But it's not enough. I need more. I need to show that this isn't just about him cheating on me. It's about his entire web of lies, manipulation, and control." Olamide paused for a moment. "I can help you with that. I know a few people in the force who can help you track his financials, get access to his accounts, see where the money is going. I'll also connect you with a lawyer who specializes in these kinds of cases. If you're serious about going through with this, you need to do it right." "I'm serious," I said, my voice firm. "I've been too passive for too long. He doesn't get to control this anymore. He doesn't get to hurt me or Ruth or anyone else. It's time for him to face the consequences." Olamide's voice was filled with determination. "I'll get started right away. I'll make a few calls and let you know what I find. You don't have to do this alone, Yajide. We'll get through it." "Thank you, Olamide," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "I really appreciate it." I hung up the phone, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. I had a plan. I had people I could trust. And most importantly, I had the truth on my side. It was time to make Tund pay for everything he had done. The next few days passed in a blur of activity. Olamide came through, connecting me with a lawyer who specialized in divorce and financial crimes. The lawyer's name was Titi, and she was sharp, no nonsense, and exactly the kind of person I needed. She told me from the start that we needed to be strategic. The more evidence we could gather, the stronger our case would be. She helped me take the evidence from Ruth and organize it into a format that would be admissible in court. She also set up meetings with the right contacts in the police force to start looking into Tund's financial records. Felt like everything was finally falling into place. The pieces were coming together, and I was starting to see a clear path forward. But even as I moved forward with my plan, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Tund was too calm, too quiet. He hadn't made a move since our phone call. Was he planning something? Was he waiting for the right moment to strike? Couldn't let my guard down. Not yet. I had to keep pushing forward, no matter what. A week later, I got the call from Olamide. "Yajide," she said, her voice urgent. "We've got something." I sat up straight, my heart pounding. "What do you mean? What did you find?" "We got access to his accounts. she said. And it's worse than we thought. He's been funneling money into several offshore accounts. There are transactions here, big ones, that we need to look into. This isn't just about cheating anymore. This is about fraud, money laundering, and possibly embezzlement. He's been hiding money from you, Yajide. He's been using his affairs to fund his lifestyle. I felt a chill run down my spine. This wasn't just a case of betrayal. This was bigger than that. Tund had been playing me for years, using me as a cover while he engaged in criminal activities. I could feel the weight of everything pressing down on me. But at the same time, I felt a sense of vindication. Tund was about to learn just how far I was willing to go to bring him down. No more playing games. No more pretending. I was done. Send me everything you've got, I said, my voice steady. We need to make sure this is airtight. Olamide agreed, and I spent the next few hours poring over the documents she had sent me. Each page revealed more of Tund's secrets. Hidden accounts, untraceable transactions, large sums of money funneled through various businesses and shell companies. It was like peeling back the layers of a rotting onion, each layer more rotten than the last. I felt sick. Sick not just because of the money, but because of the lives he had destroyed. Ruth's life, my life, the lives of the women he had used and discarded without a second thought. Tund had built an empire of lies, and I was about to tear it down. By the time I finished going through the files, I had a headache from the sheer weight of the information. But I wasn't done yet. I couldn't afford to stop now. I needed to put everything together, make sure the evidence was solid, make sure I had a rock-solid case before I confronted Tund again. It was time to take action. I made an appointment with TT, the lawyer, to go over the next steps. She was confident that we had enough to move forward with a divorce case and criminal charges. But she also warned me that it wasn't going to be easy. Tund was powerful and he had resources. He would fight back, and he would use everything at his disposal to make sure this didn't go public. But I didn't care. I was done being afraid. When I arrived at TT's office, she was already waiting for me. We sat down, and I handed her the folder filled with the evidence I had gathered. This is it, I said, my voice steady. This is everything. Tund's financials, his lies, the proof of his infidelity. It's all here. TT nodded, flipping through the papers. This is solid, Yajide. You've done the hard work. Now, we just need to make sure we present it in the right way. The key is to hit him where it hurts, his reputation. He doesn't want anyone to know about his dealings. We'll make sure the public knows exactly who he is. I nodded, feeling a sense of determination well up inside me. I don't care what it takes. He's going down. TT smiled. That's the spirit. As we made our plans, I could feel the pieces of the puzzle falling into place. Tund had no idea what was coming for him. He thought he had won. He thought he could get away with it. But he was wrong. This was just the beginning. I was about to take control of my life again, and this time I wasn't going to let him win. It had been 2 weeks since I met with TT, the lawyer, and my life felt like a ticking time bomb. Every day that passed was a step closer to the inevitable confrontation with Tund. The evidence was in place, solid, irrefutable proof of his lies, his manipulation, and his deceit. I knew I had the upper hand now, but the anxiety still gnawed at my stomach. It wasn't just the fear of what Tund would do when he realized the walls were closing in on him. It was the knowledge that the storm I was about to unleash would affect more than just him. It would affect me, Ruth, and everyone who had ever trusted him. I woke up early that morning, as I had every day for the past few weeks, and stared at the ceiling for what felt like an eternity. The faint sound of traffic outside my window was drowned out by the cacophony in my mind. What would happen when I told Tund everything I knew? Would he deny it all, or would he finally break down and admit his guilt? And when the truth came out, would I be able to handle the fallout? I swung my legs over the side of the bed and stood up, shaking off the heavy thoughts. I had been through worse. I had confronted criminals before, men who had killed, stolen, and destroyed lives. I had brought them down with nothing but determination and skill. And Tund was no different. He was just another criminal hiding behind a facade of charm and wealth, using people like pawns in his game. I couldn't let him get away with it. Not this time. I went to the kitchen and made myself a strong cup of coffee, the bitter taste sharp against my tongue. My phone buzzed on the counter, and I glanced at it, seeing Olamide's name on the screen. I picked it up. Yajide. Olamide's voice was bright, but there was an underlying tension to it. I have news. I sat down at the table, feeling the familiar sense of urgency rise within me. What news? Did you find something? Yes, Olamide said. I've been talking to the people in the police force, and they've confirmed that Tund's offshore accounts are being investigated. It looks like we have a solid case. There are even some anonymous tips coming through about him, people who are starting to talk. It's all pointing back to him, Yajide. Everything is falling into place. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. That's good news, but we still need to be careful. Tund won't go down without a fight. I know, Olamide said, her voice growing serious. But you're not alone in this, Yajide. You've got me and you've got Titi. We'll make sure everything is done by the book. He's not going to get away with it. I smiled slightly, grateful for her unwavering support. Thanks, Olamide. I don't know what I would do without you. She laughed softly. You'd still be kicking ass, Yajide. You've always been strong. I chuckled. I'm trying, but I won't lie. This whole thing is exhausting. I'm ready to confront him and be done with it. You will, Olamide assured me. Just remember patience. The storm is coming, but we have to be ready for it. The weight of her words hung heavy in the air as I set the phone down. I needed to stay patient, yes, but the longer I waited, the more I could feel the tension building. It was only a matter of time before Tund would find out that his world was about to collapse. That afternoon, I received another call, this time from Ruth. I hadn't heard from her in a few days, and I wasn't sure what to expect when I answered the phone. Yajide. Ruth's voice came through breathless. I need to talk to you. What's going on? I asked, concern creeping into my voice. I've been thinking about everything, she said, her words tumbling out, about what we're doing. And I'm scared, Yajide. I'm scared that if we expose Tund, it's going to destroy everything. I'm scared that the fallout will be too much, that we'll lose everything. I leaned back in my chair, taking a deep breath. Ruth, I understand how you feel, but you have to understand something. Tund has been using you, just like he used me. He's been lying to both of us. And he won't stop unless we do something about it. I know, she said quietly, but I never imagined it would go this far. I didn't think he was capable of hurting anyone like this. Ruth, he's been hurting people for years. It's not just us. He's been lying, stealing, and manipulating everyone around him. We can't let him get away with it. We have to make sure the truth comes out. She was silent for a moment, and when she spoke again, her voice was steadier. You're right. I've been living in a fantasy, thinking that things could be different. But I can't keep ignoring the truth. I'll help you, Yajide. I'll do whatever it takes. I could hear the resolve in her voice, and for the first time since we started this whole ordeal, I felt a sense of peace. Ruth was ready to face the truth, and together we would make sure Tund faced the consequences of his actions. We'll get through this, I said softly. We'll make sure he pays for everything he's done. Thank you, Yajide, Ruth replied. I don't know what I would have done without you. I ended the call and sat back, the weight of the situation sinking in once again. Tund had hurt so many people, but the truth was finally starting to come to light. And as much as I had dreaded this moment, as much as I had feared the fallout, I knew it was necessary. He couldn't keep hiding behind his lies. He couldn't keep using people as pawns in his game. The rest of the day passed in a blur of phone calls, meetings with TT and strategizing. There was still so much to do, but for the first time, I felt like we were moving in the right direction. The pieces were falling into place. I was finally in control, and Tund didn't even know it. The following morning, I received a message from Olamide. TT wants to meet with you today. We've got everything we need to move forward. It's time. I felt a surge of adrenaline as I read the message. It was time to take the next step. It was time to confront Tund and expose him for the man he truly was. I grabbed my bag, put on my coat, and headed out the door. The meeting with TT was brief but crucial. She confirmed that we had enough evidence to move forward with both a divorce and a criminal case. TT was confident that, with the right approach, we could take Tund down for good. But she also warned me that he would fight back. He would use everything at his disposal to protect his reputation, his wealth, and his power. I wasn't afraid. I had already faced worse, and this time I wasn't backing down. The plan was simple. We would move forward with the divorce proceedings and press criminal charges for fraud and money laundering. We would leak the information to the press, ensuring that Tund's secrets were exposed for everyone to see. The public humiliation would be his punishment. It was time for him to learn that no one, no matter how powerful, was above the law. I spent the next few days preparing for the battle ahead. There were still a few loose ends to tie up, but I felt confident. The plan was in motion, and nothing was going to stop me now. Tund. As I sat in my apartment that evening, reviewing the final details, I heard a knock at the door. My heart skipped a beat, but I forced myself to remain calm. I knew who it was before I even opened the door. Tund. His presence filled the doorway, a shadow in the dim light. His face was unreadable, his posture stiff, like a man who had come to beg or to fight. "Yajide," he said, his voice low, almost pleading. "We need to talk." I didn't flinch. "We've talked enough, Tund. You don't get to dictate the terms anymore." His eyes flickered with something. Fear? Anger? Maybe both. But he quickly masked it with a smirk. "You think you can just walk away from everything? From me?" "I'm not walking away from anything," I said, my voice steady. "I'm facing the truth, and so are you." Tund stepped forward, trying to close the distance between us, but I held my ground. "What are you going to do, Yajide? Expose me to the world? Ruin everything we've built?" "We've built nothing, Tund. You've built your empire on lies, and I'm taking it down," I said, my voice unwavering. His eyes narrowed. "You think you're in control? You think you have all the power? You're nothing without me." I shook my head slowly. "I'm everything with or without you, Tund. But you're nothing without your lies." He lunged forward, but I didn't move. "I'm not afraid of you anymore, Tund. You can't control me." His face contorted with rage, but he stopped himself. "This isn't over, Yajide. You're making a mistake." "No," I said, my voice firm. "The mistake was believing you could get away with this." Tund looked at me for a long moment, as if weighing his options, but I saw the defeat in his eyes. He knew it was over. He knew his time was up. I stood there, watching him leave, knowing that the storm was finally here. And this time I was ready for it. The days following my confrontation with Tund felt like a strange kind of limbo, neither peaceful nor chaotic, but suspended in time. My life, once tightly controlled by the expectations of my marriage, was now being reshaped by the decisions I had made, the path I had chosen. There was no turning back. No matter how hard I tried to focus on other things, I couldn't shake the nagging weight of what was coming. Tund had left my apartment that evening, but the tension didn't leave with him. It lingered, like smoke in the air after a fire. I knew he would fight back. He always did. And this time I wasn't sure if I was ready for the full force of it. It was mid-afternoon when I received the call from Olamide. Her voice, always calm and collected, now had a sharp edge to it. "Yajide, I've just spoken to TT. It's bad. He's hired a lawyer, and they're threatening to go public with the story. They've already contacted a few reporters, and I'm afraid they might twist this in his favor." I froze, my heart skipping a beat. What do you mean, twist it in his favor? They've got people on their side, Olamide said, her voice low with concern. They'll say you're the one who's been trying to ruin him, that you've been using his financial mistakes against him to get revenge. It's going to be a media circus, Yajide. I stood up and paced across the room, feeling the walls close in on me. Tund wasn't just going to sit back and let this happen. He would do anything to protect himself, and now it looked like he was going to use the media to his advantage. I had known this was coming. I had known that the fight wasn't going to be easy, but hearing it out loud, hearing that he was willing to drag my name through the mud, made it all the more real. Okay, I said, my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside me. We need to be ready for it. We can't let him control the narrative. I agree, Olamide said, but we have to be careful, Yajide. This is bigger than just you and him now. It's going to affect everything, the media, the public, even your career. You've worked hard to get where you are. Don't let him take that away from you. I won't, I replied, feeling a surge of determination. But I won't let him get away with this either. I've already given up too much for him, Olamide. It's time to take back control. I could hear the quiet approval in Olamide's voice. I'll set up a meeting with Titi. We need to come up with a strategy before this gets out of hand. I'll let you know when it's scheduled. I hung up and stared out the window, watching as the world outside continued without me. In the distance, I could see people going about their business, walking briskly down the sidewalk, cars honking as they navigated the heavy traffic. It felt like the world was moving in slow motion, as if everything was happening around me while I stood still, waiting for the storm to hit. My thoughts turned to Ruth. I hadn't heard from her in a few days, and I wondered if she was feeling the pressure of what was happening as much as I was. She had already taken a step away from Tund, but now, with the media getting involved, I worried about what that would mean for her. Was she ready to face the consequences of her involvement in this mess? I grabbed my phone and dialed her number, praying she would pick up. It rang for a few moments before she finally answered, her voice a little shaky. Yajide? Is everything okay? Everything's fine, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. I just wanted to check in with you. How are you holding up? I'm okay, Ruth replied, her voice quieter than usual. But I'm scared, Yajide. Tund's lawyer, they've already been calling me, asking for statements. They're telling me that if I don't comply, they'll make my involvement in all of this public. I don't know what to do. My heart went out to her. I had known that this wouldn't just affect Tund and me. It was a mess that involved Ruth as well. She was caught in the crossfire of a battle that she never asked to be a part of. Ruth, listen to me, I said, my voice firm. They're trying to intimidate you. They're trying to scare you into silence. But you have a right to speak the truth, and you don't have to let them use you like this. You're not alone. I'm with you. I don't know if I can do this, Yajide, she said, her voice breaking. I didn't ask for any of this. I just wanted to be happy. I know, Ruth, I said softly, but sometimes we don't get to choose the battles we fight. And this is your chance to take control, to make sure that Tund doesn't use you or anyone else for his own gain. You have to stand up for yourself. And you're not doing this alone. We'll do this together. There was a long pause on the other end of the line, and then Ruth spoke again, her voice steadier. You're right. I've been so scared, Yajide. But I don't want to be controlled anymore. I don't want him to think he can just walk away from this without facing the consequences. Good, I said, feeling a sense of relief wash over me. We'll get through this, Ruth, but we have to stay strong. We have to stick together. I'm with you, Ruth said, a new sense of determination in her voice. I'll do whatever it takes. We ended the call, and I sat back in my chair, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on me again. Tund's lawyer was already trying to turn the situation around, trying to make me the villain in this story. But I wasn't going to let them. I wasn't going to let Tund rewrite the narrative. This wasn't just about me. It was about Ruth, about every woman he had manipulated, used, and discarded. And I wasn't going to let him win. I went back to the evidence I had gathered, the text messages, the photos, the screenshots. I reviewed everything, making sure that I was prepared for whatever was coming next. I had to be ready for Tun's next move, for whatever he and his lawyer were planning. I couldn't afford to be caught off guard. Just as I was about to start making a list of the next steps, my phone rang again. This time it was Titi, the lawyer. "You jied," Titi said, her voice urgent. "I've spoken to the press. They're already running stories about you and Tund. It's starting to pick up traction. We need to act fast." "Are you saying it's already out?" I asked, panic rising in my chest. "It's not fully public yet, but it's getting there," Titi said. "We need to get ahead of this before it spins out of control. I've scheduled a meeting with a PR team who can help you handle the media. We'll make sure the narrative stays in your hands." I closed my eyes, trying to steady my breathing. The media frenzy had already begun. Tun's lawyer had played the first card in their deck, and now it was time for us to play ours. "Okay," I said, my voice firm. "Let's do this. But I need to make sure that when this goes public, it's not just about me. It's about the truth. I want everyone to know what he's really done." Titi paused before replying. "I understand. And that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to make sure that the public sees Tund for who he truly is. We'll take control of this." The plan was set into motion. I would meet with the PR team the next day to figure out how to present my side of the story to the public. I would take charge of the narrative, and I would make sure that Tund's lies didn't take hold. The storm was here, and there was no turning back. But I was ready to fight for the truth, ready to make sure that Tund's reign of manipulation was over. As I sat back in my chair, I felt the adrenaline kicking in. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about justice, about ensuring that no one, especially not Tund, could ever get away with treating people like they were disposable. Tomorrow we would take the first step. Tomorrow we would make sure the truth was heard. The day of the press meeting had arrived, and with it came the unmistakable feeling that something big was about to happen. I hadn't slept well the night before. My mind kept replaying everything. The way Tund had humiliated me in front of his friends, his calm denial of his actions, and the sudden, surreal twist where I had to become the one who exposed the man I had once loved. There was a bitterness that sat in the pit of my stomach, but there was also a fire. I wasn't going to let him win. I dressed in my best professional attire, an elegant black dress and matching heels. I wanted to exude calm, authority, and control. Today, I was not just a wife. I was a woman who had reclaimed her life, her dignity, and her power. I glanced at my reflection in the mirror, adjusting my blazer. My face was still tired, but it held determination. The storm was upon me, and I was ready to face it. The PR team TT had arranged for me was a group of experienced professionals, led by a woman named Iridi. She was sharp, composed, and had an air of confidence that instantly made me feel like I was in the right hands. When I walked into the meeting room, Iridi looked up from her notes, her eyes scanning me quickly before she gave a small nod of approval. "Yajide, you're here. Good," she said. "We don't have much time, so let's get started." I took a seat, and the others in the room, 2 other team members, a lawyer from TT's firm, and the head of the press office, followed suit. The air in the room was thick with tension, and I could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on me. Today would determine how the world saw Tund and me, how my life and the lives of those who'd been affected by him would be reshaped. Iridi started the meeting. "First, Yajide, we need to establish your narrative. You're the victim here. Tund has used and manipulated you, and we're going to make sure the public sees him for what he truly is. We'll take control of the story before the media can spin it." I nodded. "I don't care about being the victim. I want people to know the truth. That Tund isn't just a cheater. He's been playing a game, manipulating not just me, but Ruth and everyone who's ever trusted him. He's been lying about everything, His finances, his relationships, his life. I want the world to see the real Tund. The room was silent for a moment as Iridi and the others processed my words. It was clear that this wasn't just about a personal vendetta. It was about exposing a man who thought he could get away with everything. A man who used lies to build his empire. We can work with that, Iridi said, a spark of respect in her eyes. This is exactly what we need. We'll show him for what he is, a fraud, a liar, a manipulator. The press will eat this up, and once they have the full picture, Tund won't be able to control the narrative anymore. But how do we control the narrative? I asked. How do we make sure the truth isn't twisted or buried? The key is transparency, Iridi said. We'll give the media everything, facts, evidence, personal accounts. We'll show the emails, the photos, the financial records. This isn't just about a scandal. This is about truth. And truth is something the public values above all else. Once they see the full picture, they'll turn on him. TT, sitting beside me, spoke up. We've already secured your side of the story legally, Yajide. The divorce papers are ready to be filed. The moment we go public, we'll have the legal grounds to back up everything we say. I nodded. I had no intention of letting this go quietly. I had made up my mind. I would not let Tund control the situation anymore. Not just for me, but for Ruth, for the countless women who had been manipulated and betrayed by men like him. Iridi gave me a reassuring smile. You're strong, Yajide. You're in control now. We'll make sure the press knows that. The next few hours were spent strategizing. We went over the details of my story, carefully choosing which parts to highlight and how to present the evidence. TT and Irite helped me understand the legal and public aspects of it all. How to make sure my words didn't come back to haunt me. How to stay calm under pressure. How to handle the media circus that was about to unfold. We're going to release a press statement this afternoon, Iridi said, flipping through her notes. We'll include the full breakdown of the financial fraud, the proof of his infidelity, and your statement. We'll call a press conference in 2 days. This is going to make headlines, Yajide, but we'll make sure it's done right. I took a deep breath. This was it. The calm before the storm. I wasn't afraid. I couldn't afford to be. I had made a choice, and now there was no turning back. As the meeting ended, TT pulled me aside. Yajide, I want you to be prepared for what's coming. Tund will fight back. He'll try to use every trick in the book to make you look like the bad guy. But don't let him. Stick to the truth and you'll be fine. I will, I said, my voice steady. I'm ready. The meeting wrapped up, and I left the office with a sense of resolve. The storm was coming, but I had a plan. I had a team. I had the truth. And that was all I needed. By the time I got home, I had barely enough time to gather my thoughts before I received a message from Ruth. I'm scared, Yajide. They've sent me more threats. I don't know what to do. I felt my heart sink, but I wasn't going to let Tund's intimidation tactics work on either of us. I quickly typed a response. Don't worry, Ruth. We're in this together. Stay strong. We're exposing him and there's no turning back. She replied almost instantly, Thank you. I'll do whatever it takes. I set my phone down, feeling the weight of it all settle over me again. Ruth had been through enough, but she was stronger than she knew. And together we were going to make sure Tund faced the consequences of his actions. The following morning, the first wave hit. The press release went live and the media began to pick it up. The story spread like wildfire, with headlines like Lagos woman exposes husband's hidden fortune, affairs, and Tund A, the man behind the lies, dominating the news cycle. Within hours, social media was abuzz with gossip and speculation. Everyone had an opinion. Everyone was talking about Tund, about me, about Ruth. The world was suddenly watching us. I had prepared myself for this, but nothing could have prepared me for the way the public's reaction would unfold. Some people sympathized with me. They saw me as the victim, the strong woman who had been wronged and was now taking control of her life. But there were others. Tun's friends, business associates, and even strangers, who attacked me, calling me bitter, vengeful, and even accusing me of lying to destroy Tun's life. It was exhausting. The messages, the comments, the constant stream of opinions. But I couldn't back down. I had made my decision, and there was no turning back. As the media frenzy continued, I received a message from Tun's lawyer. "You're making a mistake, Yajide. If you don't retract your statements, we will take legal action. You have no idea what you're getting yourself into." I laughed bitterly as I read the message. "Go ahead. You'll be hearing from my lawyer soon." I set my phone down and took a deep breath. The war was far from over, but it was a war I was finally ready to fight. The next day, I met with the PR team again. The press conference was scheduled for the following morning, and we had to be prepared for the questions, the cameras, and the inevitable backlash. I had a plan, a script, and a strategy. I was going to stand in front of the world and tell them the truth. As the time for the press conference drew near, I felt a strange sense of calm. I had already come this far, and nothing was going to stop me now. I walked into the room, my head held high. The cameras flashed. The reporters clamored for attention, but I wasn't intimidated. This was my moment. The truth was finally going to come out. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, my voice clear and strong, "thank you for being here. Today, I stand before you not just as a wife who has been wronged, but as a woman who has found her strength. Tunde has lied, cheated, and manipulated his way through life. He has used me, used Ruth, and used anyone he could to get what he wanted. Today, I will expose him for who he truly is." The room went silent as I began to speak, the cameras capturing every word. This was the moment I had been waiting for. This was the moment Tun's empire of lies would crumble. And there was no turning back. The press conference was nothing like I expected. The moment I stepped into the brightly lit room filled with cameras, microphones, and reporters, the gravity of the situation hit me. The world was watching, and I couldn't afford to falter. This wasn't just about me anymore. This was about exposing the truth that Tunde had tried so hard to bury. I could feel the tension in the air as I took my place at the podium. The room was buzzing with whispers, and I could see reporters adjusting their cameras, eager to capture every moment. The weight of their expectations pressed down on me, but I stood firm. I had already come this far. I wasn't about to let fear control me now. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, my voice steady, "thank you for being here today. My name is Yajide, and I stand before you not just as a wife wronged, but as a woman who has decided to take control of her life and her future." The room fell silent, and I could feel the eyes of every journalist in the room on me. This was my moment to make my stand. For too long, I allowed myself to be manipulated, lied to, and treated as if my worth was determined by someone else's actions. But today I am taking back my power. I am here to tell you the truth about my marriage to Tunde. The truth about a man who, for years, has lived a double life. A life built on lies, manipulation, and deceit. The cameras clicked and flashed, capturing every word I said. I could feel the eyes of the reporters on me, waiting for the next revelation. I wasn't just telling my story anymore. I was exposing a man who had hurt so many people, including Ruth, and who thought he could get away with it because of his wealth and influence. Tunde, I continued, has been living a lie. He has been using me, using Ruth, using everyone who trusted him to build a facade of success. But beneath that facade lies a man who has used his position to control, deceive, and hurt those around him. For years, I stood by him, believing in the promises he made to me. I thought our marriage was built on trust. But it wasn't. It was built on lies. I paused for a moment, letting my words sink in. I could feel the weight of the truth in my chest, heavy but liberating. This was the moment I had been waiting for. This was the moment when Tun's mask would finally come off. "I have proof," I said, my voice unwavering. Proof of his infidelity. Proof of his financial fraud. Proof that he has been hiding money from me, from Ruth, from everyone he's ever pretended to care about. I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder filled with documents. The room was still, the tension palpable. I opened the folder slowly, letting the reporters take in the weight of what was about to happen. These are just a few of the documents that show the extent of Tun's deception, I continued. These are the records of his offshore accounts, his secret financial dealings, and the lies he's told about me. These are the receipts of his betrayal. I laid the documents out on the podium, letting the reporters examine them as I spoke. I could feel the energy in the room shift as the truth began to take hold. The reporters whispered among themselves, their questions already forming. But I wasn't done yet. I don't expect sympathy, I said, meeting the eyes of the reporters in the room. I'm not here to play the victim. I'm here to take back control of my life and to expose a man who has spent years destroying others for his own gain. This isn't just about me. This is about everyone who has been hurt by Tun's lies. This is about Ruth, who thought she was the only one, and who is now facing the consequences of trusting him. This is about every woman he has used and discarded. And this is about me, standing here today, reclaiming my dignity and my future. The reporters were silent for a moment, taking in everything I had said. The weight of my words hung in the air, and I could see the shift in their expressions. They weren't just reporters anymore. They were witnesses, and Tund was no longer the man with the power. I felt a strange sense of peace settle over me. The storm had come, but I was no longer afraid. Tund had spent years controlling the narrative, manipulating people, hiding behind his wealth and influence. But today I had control. Today I was the one who was telling the truth. And the truth had a way of cutting through the lies like a knife. The first reporter raised their hand. Ms. Yajide, they began. Can you explain how you discovered these accounts? And what kind of financial fraud are we talking about? I took a deep breath and answered as calmly as I could. I discovered the accounts by accident when I came across a message on Tun's phone. At first, I thought it was a one-time mistake. But when I dug deeper, I realized this wasn't just a simple affair. This was a pattern, a deliberate attempt to hide money and manipulate the people around him. The financial fraud includes money laundering through shell companies, offshore accounts that he's been funneling money into for years. It's not just about infidelity. It's about using people for his own gain, and I won't stand by and let him continue to do that. The questions came fast after that. The reporters were eager to get more details, to piece together the story I had just started to tell. I answered as best as I could, providing the information I had, the evidence I had gathered, and the reasons behind my decision to go public. But even as I spoke, I could feel the storm brewing outside the press conference. Tund would fight back. I knew that. His lawyer had already warned me. But what I didn't know was how far he was willing to go to protect his empire of lies. Would he try to discredit me? Would he use the media to turn the story in his favor? Would he do everything he could to ruin me, to make me look like the villain in this story? I couldn't afford to let that happen. I had to stay strong. I had to stay focused. As the press conference ended, I felt a strange sense of relief. The first step was done. The truth was out there for the world to see. The media would spread the word, and there was no turning back. I had exposed Tund for who he truly was. But the battle wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I left the building, my mind racing with what had just transpired. The press had already begun reporting on the story, and I knew it wouldn't be long before Tund's team tried to respond. The game had just started, and I was ready for whatever came next. I called Olamide as soon as I got into my car. "It's done," I said, my voice steady but full of emotion. "The truth is out there." "Good," Olamide said, her voice filled with pride. "You did the right thing, Yajide. But now we have to prepare for the fallout. Tund won't go down without a fight. I'm ready, I replied. I've been through worse. This is nothing. As I drove home, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. Tun's empire of lies had been exposed, and I had done it. But as the day wore on, I knew the hardest part was yet to come. Tund would fight back, and when he did, I had to be ready. That night, as I sat alone in my apartment, staring out at the city lights, I felt a mix of emotions: relief, fear, anticipation. The storm was here, but I had weathered the first part of it. I had faced the truth, and I had exposed Tund for who he truly was. But the next chapter was just beginning, and I was ready to fight. The weeks following the press conference were a whirlwind, but it was one I was prepared for. The media storm that had started after my exposé of Tund's life of lies and manipulation was relentless, but it didn't bother me the way I thought it would. If anything, it fueled my resolve. The world was finally seeing him for who he truly was. A man who used people to build his empire without a second thought for the consequences of his actions. As the days passed, the media coverage grew. The headlines kept coming, and the public's reaction was split. Some sympathized with me, seeing me as a victim who had finally found her voice. Others sided with Tund, calling me bitter, vengeful, and even accusing me of trying to ruin his life. It didn't matter to me. The truth was out there, and no amount of media manipulation could change that. But Tund wasn't going to go down quietly. I knew he wouldn't. His lawyer had already threatened legal action, and Tund had been conspicuously silent in the media, likely strategizing his next move. I could almost feel the tension in the air, the pressure mounting with every passing day. One evening, as I sat at my desk going over the latest developments, I received a call from TT, my lawyer. Her voice was unusually calm, and I could tell something big was about to happen. "Yajide," she began. "I've just spoken to Tund's legal team. They want to settle out of court. They're offering a large sum of money in exchange for you dropping the charges and retracting your public statements." I felt a chill run down my spine. A settlement? What kind of sum are we talking about? "A significant one," TT replied. "They're offering enough to make you financially secure for the rest of your life. But in exchange, they want you to sign a non-disclosure agreement and agree to drop everything. They're trying to buy your silence, Yajide." I felt a flash of anger. He thinks he can just pay me off? After everything he's done to me, to Ruth, to everyone he's hurt? No, I won't take the money. I won't let him get away with it. "I agree," TT said, her voice firm, "but we need to be prepared for the fallout. Tund is powerful, and he's using all his resources to fight back. We have to be strategic. If you don't want the settlement, we'll go to court and fight for justice. But we need to make sure we're ready for the battle ahead." "I'm ready," I said, my voice steady. "I've already made my decision. I'm not going to let him buy me off. He's going to pay for what he's done, and I'm going to make sure of it." TT paused before speaking again. "Good. We'll make sure the court sees everything. We'll go after him with everything we have. But you need to be prepared, Yajide. This is going to be a long fight." "I know," I said, taking a deep breath, "but I'm in this for the long haul." The next few weeks were filled with legal meetings, preparations for the upcoming court case, and strategizing with TT and the PR team. The pressure was starting to build, but I wasn't afraid. I knew what I had to do. I had to keep my focus on the truth, and I had to make sure that Tund would never get away with what he had done. Then, one morning, I received a call from Ruth. Her voice was trembling when she spoke. "Yajide, I don't know what to do," she said, her words rushed. "They've been calling me, Tund's lawyers. They've been threatening me, saying that if I testify against him, they'll destroy my life. They said they'll release private photos of me, things I don't want anyone to see." My heart sank. "Ruth, don't let them intimidate you. They're just trying to scare you. You have the truth on your side, and you're not alone in this. We're going to fight this together." You can't let them use you like this. But you jied. No, I interrupted, my voice firm. We've come this far, Ruth. You're not backing down now. We have to stay strong. We have to stand up for ourselves. There was silence on the other end of the line, and for a moment I thought Ruth might back out. But then she spoke again, her voice more resolute this time. You're right. I can't let them win. I'll do whatever it takes. Good, I said, relieved. We'll face this together. Don't let them control you. You're stronger than they think. The next day, Ruth and I met with Titi to discuss our strategy. We had already gathered enough evidence to take Tund to court, but we knew that the fight would be long and brutal. Tund's team was going to throw everything they had at us, and we had to be ready for it. You have to be prepared for the worst, you jied, Titi said as we sat around the table. Tund is going to fight dirty. He's going to use every trick in the book to discredit you and Ruth. But you can't let him. You can't let him twist the story. I won't, I said, my voice firm. I've been through worse than this. I'm ready for whatever he throws at me. Titi nodded. Good, because we're going to need all the strength we can get. The days leading up to the court hearing were a blur of legal meetings, strategy sessions, and media appearances. The press was still running stories about Tund and me, but it wasn't just about the affair anymore. It was about the lies, the manipulation, and the fraud. The public was starting to see Tund for who he truly was. Then the day of the court hearing arrived. I stood in front of the courthouse, my heart pounding in my chest. The media had gathered outside, and the cameras were flashing as I walked in. I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders, but I refused to let it crush me. Today I was taking back my power. Today Tund was going to face the consequences of his actions. Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere was tense. Tund's lawyers were already seated, their eyes trained on me as I walked in. They had their own strategy, their own set of tactics they were going to use to try to discredit me. But I wasn't going to let them. I had the truth, and the truth was my weapon. The judge entered, and the room fell silent. The proceedings began, and Titi stood by my side, guiding me through the process. Tund's team went first, attempting to paint me as a scorned woman, desperate for revenge. They tried to discredit Ruth, too, calling her a liar, accusing her of being a willing participant in the affair. But their tactics didn't work. The evidence we had was solid. The truth was undeniable. When it was my turn to testify, I walked to the witness stand with my head held high. I took a deep breath, feeling the eyes of the courtroom on me. This was it, the moment I had been waiting for. I wasn't just testifying for myself. I was testifying for Ruth, for every woman who had ever been manipulated and deceived by a man like Tund. I spoke clearly, recounting the years of lies, the betrayal, and the manipulation. I explained how I had discovered Tund's infidelity, his financial fraud, and the web of lies he had spun to cover up his actions. I detailed the conversations I had had with Ruth, the threats she had received, and how she, too, had been manipulated by him. I looked directly at Tund as I spoke, his eyes cold and calculating. He didn't flinch. He didn't react. But I knew he was listening. I knew he was feeling the weight of everything I was saying. When I finished, I took my seat, my heart still racing. The courtroom was silent, the tension palpable. Tund's lawyers tried to poke holes in my testimony, but it was clear they were grasping at straws. They couldn't deny the truth. As the day wore on, I could feel the momentum shifting. Tund's defense was unraveling piece by piece. The lies were starting to catch up with him. And when the final verdict was delivered, I knew we had won. The judge ruled in my favor, granting the divorce and ordering Tund to pay restitution for the fraud and emotional distress he had caused. He was also ordered to surrender control of his offshore accounts to the court for further investigation. I walked out of the courtroom, my heart lighter than it had been in years. The battle had been long, but it had been worth it. I had fought for the truth, and the truth had prevailed. Tund might have thought he could control me, manipulate me, and destroy me, but he was wrong. As I walked through the crowd of reporters, a sense of relief washed over me. I had finally taken control of my own life. The lies had been exposed, and Tund was facing the consequences of his actions. The storm had come, and I had weathered it. And now I was free. Don't forget